The hum of the specialized workstation's cooling fans hummed a familiar melody inside the small penthouse on the 28th floor of the vista. From this vantage point, through the floor-to-ceiling anti-reflective tempered glass, East Austin emerged like a giant electronic circuit board, flashing with the sapphire blue and amethyst purple LED neon lights of major tech conglomerates. Austin in 2026 never slept. Streams of autonomous vehicles glided down the avenues like red blood cells moving through the veins of a tireless city. Elena Voss leaned back in her ergonomic chair, removed her blue light-filtering glasses, and gently pinched the bridge of her nose. The smartwatch on her wrist vibrated softly, displaying 11:42 p.m. As a senior cybersecurity threat analyst, Elena's world was built on binary algorithms, impenetrable firewalls, and the strictest security protocols. She could detect a zero-day vulnerability in a client's system within minutes, halting a distributed denial of service (DDoS) attack from across the globe before it could even latency the servers. Yet, ironically, the greatest, most fatal vulnerability in her life did not exist in cyberspace. It lay right in the blood flowing through her veins. The screen of the iPhone resting on the desk suddenly lit up, shattering the carefully measured silence of the room. A text message notification from Marcus. Tomorrow at 7 a.m. you have to watch Emma and Lucas. Sophia and I have to fly to Miami urgently for work. Mom already gave me the spare key plus fob. Don't make a scene. Elena stared blankly at the words on the screen. Each word, each punctuation mark felt like cold needles piercing straight into her temples. Not a single inquiry about her well-being. Not a question of whether she was free. Not even a single please. It was an order. An ultimatum delivered from the position of a superior, someone who defaulted that Elena Voss's sole existence in this world was merely a utility tool, a free pit stop for his family's chaotic messes. Taking a deep breath to keep her heart rate under control, she typed a quick reply, "I can't. I have an important presentation with a client at 8:30 a.m. This was a multi-million-dollar security project she had spent the last 3 weeks working through sleepless nights to prepare. A definitive move to secure her seat as director of security. In less than 10 seconds, 3 blinking dots appeared and vanished, replaced by a ruthless reply, "Doesn't matter. Mom already gave me the key. I will drop the kids at your door if you don't open." Elena let her hands drop limp. The luxurious penthouse, a symbol of her financial independence and relentless effort over nearly a decade, suddenly felt as suffocating as a glass cage. The spare key and electronic key fob to this apartment, which she had trusted to her mother, Margaret, just in case of a medical emergency, had now been weaponized into a battle axe in Marcus's hands. Memories of past years rushed back, weighing heavily on her chest. This wasn't the first time. The last 28 months had been an endless cycle of crisis bailouts. Elena closed her eyes, and in the darkness of her mind, the numbers began to dance with terrifying precision. She opened an incognito tab on her secure browser, accessed her personal bank account, and exported over 2 years of wire transfer data into an Excel spreadsheet. The recipient column, Marcus Voss and Margaret Voss. The reason column, car repairs, mom's urgent medical bills, credit card debts, and even temporary loans for Marcus to invest in crypto, which in reality were funneled into online gambling sites. The total amount flashed on the bottom line in bright red, $87,000. That was blood, sweat, and tears, countless nights spent confronting ransomware, money she had accumulated to fully pay off her mortgage. And what did she get in return for that silent sacrifice? Sophia, Marcus's wife, nonchalantly posted photos of herself carrying designer bags at 5-star resorts in Cabo on Instagram, while Marcus never once bothered to ask how Elena was doing in Austin. As for her mother, Maggie, every phone call followed a single script, crying, complaining about her severe high blood pressure, and concluding with the classic line, "He is your brother, if you don't help him, who will? Stop being so selfish, you can't take money with you when you die." This exploitation masquerading as family love had dragged on for too long because Elena had always chosen compliance in exchange for a fragile, fake peace. But tonight, seeing Marcus's brazen text and the betrayal of her own mother who willingly handed over her apartment keys to someone else, a switch inside the mind of cybersecurity risk analyst Elena Voss was officially flipped. Their family thought they could use guilt trips to break her boundaries. They thought her home was the collective property of the Voss clan. They thought she was an unconditional safety net, always present to pick up the shattered pieces of their irresponsible lifestyles. Elena closed the Excel file and locked her computer screen. The light from her phone reflecting in her eyes was no longer filled with hesitation or hurt. It was cold, sharp, and precise, like a newly optimized line of source code. "This isn't a favor," Elena muttered in the empty room, her voice flat but steely. "This is an unauthorized intrusion. And in my world, every intrusion must be isolated and neutralized." The clock ticked toward 11:50 p.m. Elena stood up and walked toward the entrance, where the Vista Smart biometric lock glowed with a faint, pale green light. Her real war to reclaim her life began at this exact moment. Elena stood before the sleek, matte black console of her apartment's primary access point. The soft, rhythmic pulsing of the green LED illuminated her face in the darkened foyer. To anyone else, the smart lock was merely a modern convenience. To Elena, it was the perimeter of her sanctuary. She tapped her wrist against the scanner, authorizing the synchronization between her smartwatch and the building's localized network. Her fingers glided across her phone screen, opening the encrypted portal for the Vista Resident portal. The interface was clean, minimalist, and unforgiving to those who did not possess the correct administrative credentials. Tonight, she was revoking the open-door policy her family had violently taken for granted. With a few precise taps, Elena accessed the key management submenu. There they were, listed under the authorized secondary users. Margaret Voss, physical fob number 0422 and spare mechanical key. Elena's thumb hovered over the red deactivate button. A slight tremor ran through her hand, not of fear, but of the heavy realization that pressing this button meant crossing a point of no return. She remembered the day she handed that physical fob to her mother. Maggie had smiled, patted her cheek, and promised it would only be used if Elena ever landed in the hospital. It had taken less than 2 years for that token of maternal trust to be bartered away to Marcus as a weapon of convenience. Elena pressed down hard on the screen. Status, revoked. Instantly, the system sent a command to the cloud, rendering the physical fob in Marcus's possession nothing more than a useless piece of molded plastic. But Elena knew a simple digital deactivation wouldn't be enough. Marcus was aggressive, and when blocked, his default reaction was to force his way through. She initiated a live chat with the building's 24/7 concierge and security dispatch. Because it was past midnight, the emergency maintenance protocol required a premium fee. Requesting immediate emergency lock rekeying and digital protocol override, she typed into the terminal, authorizing the $1,200 surcharge without a second thought. It was an expensive barrier, but independence had never been cheap. Within 5 minutes, a notification popped up, emergency request approved. Maintenance dispatching remote firmware patch to Unit 2804. A heavy, mechanical click echoed through the quiet foyer as the physical deadbolt realigned itself, changing its interior locking configuration. The old mechanical spare key Maggie held was now physically obsolete. Next, Elena opened her building's security integration app to activate the unauthorized entry alert. This feature was designed for high-profile residents who faced stalking or corporate espionage threats. If anyone attempted to scan a revoked fob or manipulate the door handle more than 3 times, an automatic silent alarm would trip, instantly streaming live video feeds to both Elena's phone and the central security desk on the ground floor. She adjusted the sensitivity parameters to maximum and designated Marcus, Sophia, and Margaret Voss as flagged individuals within the building's private guest logging system. She uploaded their driver's license photos, which she had saved from previous travel bookings, into the building's facial recognition database. If their faces appeared in the lobby or the parking garage, the security team would be alerted before they even reached the elevators. Returning to her workstation, Elena opened the Excel spreadsheet containing the $87,000 transaction history. She didn't just leave it as a raw list of dates and numbers, she began organizing it with the meticulous discipline of a forensic accountant. She attached digital PDF receipts, bank clearance confirmations, and screenshots of the text messages that had preceded each transfer. January 14, 2025, $4,500 to Marcus for urgent plumbing repair. Screenshots showed Sophia checking into a luxury spa in Aspen the following day. June 3, 2025, $8,000 to Margaret for medical bills, later discovered to be a cover to clear Marcus's day trading debts. Elena compiled everything into a single, password-protected master dossier titled voss_financial_timeline.pdf. She uploaded it to a secure cloud storage folder, creating a shared link that she could distribute in an instant if her family tried to rewrite the narrative. By 2:15 a.m., the digital fortress was complete. Elena walked back to her living room and looked out at the Austin skyline. The city was still vibrating with energy, but inside her penthouse, the air felt different, colder, sharper, and entirely hers. For years, she had allowed her family to bleed her dry, thinking that if she just gave a little more, they would finally respect her. She had been playing by the rules of familial obligation, while they were playing a game of pure exploitation. Now, the rules had changed. Elena set her alarm for 5:30 a.m., closed her eyes, and slept with a profound, unshakable calmness. The trap was set, and she knew exactly what was coming when the sun rose over Texas. At 5:30 a.m., the harsh vibrato of Elena's alarm broke the silence. She opened her eyes instantly, completely alert. There was no morning grogginess, only the cold adrenaline of a strategist waiting for the first move on a digital chessboard. She dressed deliberately in her uniform of corporate authority, a tailored, charcoal gray blazer, dark slacks, and a crisp white shirt. Her hair was pulled back into a flawless, tight ponytail. She looked professional, unbothered, and entirely in control. After checking her phone to confirm that the building's security system was running perfectly and the firmware patch on her smart lock was active, she grabbed her laptop bag and walked out of Unit 2804. By 6:15 a.m., Elena was seated at a corner table inside the Daily Grind, a minimalist coffee shop located directly across the street from the Vista. The cafe had floor-to-ceiling glass windows that provided an unobstructed, panoramic view of the building's grand entrance and valet loop. Elena ordered a black Americano, opened her laptop, and logged into her building's resident portal. Because she paid a premium tech amenity fee, she had authorized access to the external security cameras monitoring the lobby and the front entrance. She arranged her screens meticulously, her work presentation on the left, the live security camera feeds in the center, and her phone's messaging app on the right. She was establishing her command post. The morning sun began to hit the glass facade of the Vista, turning the building into a shimmering monolith of steel and light. At 6:45 a.m., Elena's phone lit up with an incoming call from Margaret. She didn't answer. Instead, she tapped a shortcut on her phone to route the call through a call recording application she had installed overnight. Maggie left a voicemail, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Elena, sweetie, we're almost there. Your brother is so stressed about his flight. Just make sure you have some breakfast ready for the kids, okay? See you in a few minutes." Elena listened to the playback with a numb expression. The entitlement was staggering. They hadn't even checked to see if she had relented, they simply assumed she had fallen in line, just as she always did. Elena closed her laptop, slid it smoothly into her leather bag, and took one final, deliberate sip of her black coffee. Across the street, the scene through the glass facade of the Vista was escalating exactly as her predictive models had suggested. She walked out of the coffee shop, the humid morning air of Austin hitting her face, a sharp contrast to the air-conditioned bubble she had occupied all night. As she crossed the boulevard, she could hear the muffled sound of Marcus's shouting cutting through the glass doors of the lobby. She tapped her smartwatch, initiating a discrete application that would record all ambient audio through her phone's microphone and upload it directly to her secure cloud dossier. She stepped through the main entrance of the vista at exactly 7:12 a.m. The automatic doors glided open, and the full force of the chaos washed over her. Marcus was in the middle of a screaming match with Chief Security Officer David, his face a deep, mottled purple as he gestured wildly toward the elevator bank. Sophia was pacing back and forth on the polished marble, filming the security guards with her phone, loudly declaring that she was going to ruin the building's reputation on social media. Margaret was slumped dramatically against a decorative velvet armchair, fanning herself with a high-end real estate brochure, while Emma and Lucas sat on their suitcases, looking terrified as the flashing amber lights of the security system reflected in their wide eyes. The moment Marcus caught sight of Elena walking toward them, his expression shifted from rage to a venomous, triumphant sneer. He took 3 aggressive strides toward her, pointing a finger directly at her face. "Oh, look who finally decided to show her face. What the hell is wrong with you, Elena? Have you completely lost your mind? We've been stuck down here for 15 minutes because of your stupid tech glitch. Move your ass, tell these rent-a-cops to turn off this alarm, and get these kids up to your apartment. Our Uber Black to the airport is idling outside, and we are going to miss our flight." Elena did not flinch. She did not stop walking until she was standing exactly 2 feet away from him. Her posture remained unyielding, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. She didn't look at Marcus, instead, she turned her gaze directly to David, who was waiting for her signal. "Good morning, David," Elena said, her voice clear, calm, and perfectly modulated to carry across the high-ceilinged lobby, ensuring that the surrounding residents and the recording phones could capture every word. "I want to confirm on the record. I do not authorize any of these individuals to enter my unit, nor do I grant them access to the residential elevators. We don't have time for this corporate bureaucracy." David did not move a muscle to comply. Instead, he looked down at his monitor, where Elena's pre-programmed unauthorized entry alert was flashing their driver's license photos alongside a bold, red directive from the primary resident. David looked back up, his voice utterly devoid of emotion. "Sir, you need to step away from the desk. The fob you are holding has been remotely revoked by the primary tenant of Unit 2804. Furthermore, your names have been flagged on our system as unauthorized visitors. You do not have permission to access the elevators or the residential floors." "What did you just say?" Margaret gasped, pushing her way past her son, her hand clutching her chest in a theatrical display of distress. "I am her mother. Margaret Voss. I am the one who gave him that key. That apartment belongs to my daughter, which means it belongs to this family. You have no right to keep us out of her home. Call her down here this instant. Elena. Elena, open this door." She began to wail, her voice rising in pitch as a few early morning residents entering the lobby stopped in their tracks, pulling out their phones to capture the unfolding spectacle. The illusion of control the Voss family had held over Elena for 28 months was dissolving in a matter of seconds, laid bare under the unforgiving glare of the lobby's security cameras. The lobby seemed to drop 5 degrees in an instant. Marcus's hand dropped to his side, his mouth opening and closing in sheer disbelief. Margaret bolted upright from the velvet chair, her theatrical illness entirely forgotten as she marched toward Elena, her face twisted in righteous fury. "Elena Voss. How dare you speak to your brother like that in public? Before all these strangers," she hissed, her voice trembling with a toxic mixture of guilt trip and parental authority. "Look at your niece and nephew. They are exhausted, they are hungry, and you are standing here playing these childish corporate games. You are going to give me a heart attack, Elena. My blood pressure is already through the roof. If anything happens to me today, it is entirely on your hands. Open that door right now." Sophia chimed in from behind, her voice dripping with calculated malice as she aimed her phone camera directly at Elena's face. "Let's show everyone the real Elena Voss," Sophia jeered, pitching her voice for the benefit of her social media followers. The cold, heartless tech drone who is so selfish, so desperate for control because she has no husband, no kids, and no real life of her own, that she would lock her own family out on the street. You're a monster, Elena. You don't know what it means to love anyone but yourself. Elena looked at Sophia, then at her mother, and finally back to Marcus. For years, this exact combination of screaming, insults, and medical manipulation would have reduced her to tears, forcing her to apologize and surrender just to make the noise stop. But tonight, she had seen the numbers. She had seen the $87,000. She had seen the structural reality of their exploitation. The emotional weapons that had held her hostage for her entire adult life had suddenly lost all of their power. I have given you my answer, Elena said, her eyes deadpan and piercing. My apartment is no longer your dumping ground. Your emergency is not my problem. Marcus's control snapped. Devoid of any remaining leverage and pushed to the brink of missing his flight, he grabbed 2 heavy roller bags and lunged violently toward the secure elevator gates. Out of my way, he yelled, throwing his shoulder directly into David's chest in a desperate bid to force his way through. The reaction from the security detail was instantaneous and practiced. David pivoted, executing a textbook restraint hold that pinned Marcus's arms securely behind his back, while the second guard stepped in to block Sophia, who was screaming and swinging her designer purse like a weapon. The sharp, heavy screech of a police siren suddenly cut through the air outside. Within seconds, 2 officers from the Austin Police Department burst through the front glass doors, their hands resting cautiously near their utility belts. Everyone freeze. Step away from each other right now, the lead officer commanded, his voice cutting through the chaotic din. David immediately released Marcus, stepping back with his hands raised to show compliance, while Marcus stumbled forward, gasping for air and straightening his rumpled tracksuit. Before the police could even assess the room, Marcus pointed frantically at Elena. Officer. Thank God you're here. I want this woman arrested right now. She's holding our property, she's trying to make us miss an international business flight, and these guards just assaulted me. This is a family dispute, my mother gave us the keys to that apartment up there, and she's illegally locking us out. The lead officer turned his gaze to Elena, his face expressionless as he pulled out a notepad. Ma'am, is this your apartment? And did you authorize their entry? Elena took a single step forward, completely unbothered by Marcus's dramatic outburst. She reached into her blazer pocket, pulled out her phone, and unlocked the interface linked to her secure cloud storage. Officer, my name is Elena Voss. I am the sole leaseholder and primary resident of Unit 2804. I have never authorized these individuals to enter my home today. In fact, I explicitly revoked all secondary access privileges at midnight and notified building security. She paused, looking Marcus dead in the eye. And as for this being an unexpected family emergency, I think you should listen to this. Elena tapped the screen, activating the external speaker of her phone. A clear, digital audio file began to play, the recording of the phone conversation between Margaret and Marcus from 10:15 p.m. the previous night, which Elena's automated system had flagged and captured. Maggie's recorded voice echoed flawlessly through the silent marble lobby. Don't worry about asking her, Marcus. Just take the key I gave you and show up. She'll complain a little bit, but in the end, she always bends. I know the girl, just threaten her with my health or tell her she's being an ungrateful daughter, and she'll soften right up. She can afford to handle your mess. The lobby went dead silent. The utter calculation, the cold, structural malice behind her mother's voice was laid bare for every resident, security guard, and police officer to hear. Sophia's jaw dropped, her phone slowly lowering as she realized she had just documented her own family's undoing. Margaret's face turned an ashen white, her hand freezing over her chest as the medical charade she had relied on for decades evaporated into thin air. A few residents standing near the mailboxes openly gasped. One man whispered, "Jesus, that's cold," while another began to clap softly. The police officer closed his notepad with a heavy snap. He turned to Marcus and Sophia, his tone dropping into a dangerous, authoritative register. Here's how this is going to go. You do not live here. You have no legal right to this property. If you or your mother set foot past that security desk again, you will be arrested for criminal trespass. Furthermore, if you attempt to leave these 2 children unattended in this lobby, we will immediately contact Child Protective Services and take you into custody for child abandonment. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Lucas was crying hysterically, clinging to his sister Emma's shirt, while Emma looked up at Elena with wide, terrified eyes. Elena felt a brief pang of sorrow for the kids, but she remained rooted in place. She knew that stepping in to save them now would only invite the parasites back into her life. Frantic and sweating, Marcus yanked out his phone to call an emergency nanny service, his hands shaking so violently he dropped his device twice. Sophia was weeping openly now, realizing they had missed their check-in window for the Miami flight and were facing an $850 a day urgent childcare penalty. As the police escorted the arguing, broken trio out toward the curb, Margaret looked back at Elena, her eyes filled with a desperate, venomous hatred. Elena simply watched them go, her heart rate steady at 65 beats per minute. The digital wall had held. The old bloodline was officially broken. By noon that Saturday, the fallout shifted from the physical lobby of the Vista to the digital battlefield. Sophia, furious over the missed flight and the exorbitant $850 emergency nanny fee, weaponized her social media presence. She uploaded a heavily edited, selective video snippet to TikTok and Instagram with the caption, "Our family is heartbroken. My sister-in-law Elena Voss, a wealthy tech executive in Austin, had her own mother and 2 small, exhausted children kicked out into the street by police just because we asked her to watch her niece and nephew for a few hours. This is what corporate greed and zero family values look like. #Austin family drama #heartless. Within hours, the post gained traction, accumulating thousands of views and a barrage of nasty, misinformed comments attacking Elena's character. Elena sat at her penthouse kitchen island, watching the metrics climb on Sophia's post. A younger, less experienced version of herself would have panicked, flooded with shame and a desperate urge to apologize just to clear her name. But as a threat analyst, Elena knew that an adversary's narrative is only powerful until it encounters unassailable data. She opened her laptop and unzipped the master file she had compiled the night before, boss_financial_timeline.pdf. She added the newly acquired assets to the file, the crystal-clear audio recording of her mother plotting to manipulate her, the full, unedited security footage from the lobby showing Marcus attacking David, and a copy of the official Austin Police Department incident report citing criminal trespass warning. With cold, surgical precision, Elena executed her counterstrike. She did not engage in a public shouting match in Sophia's comment section. Instead, she drafted a polite, objective email with the master dossier attached as a secure link. She BCC'd every single member of the extended Voss family, aunts, uncles, cousins, and lifelong family friends across Texas, headlined simply, "Clarification regarding the events of July 12, 2026. In the body of the email, she wrote, "To ensure the family has accurate information regarding recent events and financial dynamics, please find the certified records below." This includes the full log of $87,000 in unrepaid financial support provided over the last 28 months, alongside the audio and police records from this morning. Moving forward, I am permanently withdrawing all financial assistance and cutting off contact. She hit send, effectively dropping an informational bomb into the family ecosystem. The reaction to Elena's digital dossier was instantaneous, rippling through the extended Voss family network like an unstoppable wildfire. The family group chats, which had previously been filled with generic pleasantries and passive-aggressive complaints about Elena's distance, erupted into absolute chaos. Aunt Beatrice, the family matriarch from Houston, was the first to reply directly to the group thread, her words sharp and unyielding, "Margaret, I am sickened. We all thought Marcus was struggling due to market conditions, but you've been funneling Elena's hard-earned money to cover his gambling? And plotting to use your health to blackmail her? Disgraceful." Dozens of similar notifications flooded in as uncles and cousins expressed their collective shock and disgust at the sheer magnitude of the exploitation. The narrative Sophia had tried to build online collapsed instantly under the weight of indisputable bank receipts and audio files. Meanwhile, inside Marcus's household, the atmosphere was toxic. The public exposure stripped away the thin veneer of their affluent lifestyle, revealing the rotten core of their financial dependency. Cousins who had previously loaned Marcus smaller amounts of money began demanding immediate repayment, realizing he was a structural liability. Sophia, humiliated by the immediate backlash and the threat of being ostracized by the wealthier side of the family, deleted her viral video within 4 hours of posting it, but the damage was already done. Mirrors of the video, coupled with Elena's leaked financial spreadsheet, were already circulating on local Austin subreddits, transforming the family into an object of public ridicule. Margaret tried to call Elena 42 times from 3 different burner numbers, but every single line met the same clinical, automated rejection: "The number you are trying to reach has restricted your access." The most definitive shift, however, came from a source Elena least expected: her father, Richard Voss. Richard had lived a quiet, checked-out existence for the past decade, residing in a small ranch outside of San Antonio, having long divorced Margaret and chosen to remain neutral in the family's toxic dynamics. At 4:30 p.m., his name flashed across Elena's screen. Because he had never participated in the exploitation, Elena answered. Richard's voice was tired, but unusually firm. "Elena, I read the dossier. I listened to the tape." He paused, taking a heavy breath. "I want to apologize to you, sweetheart. I spent years staying quiet just to keep the peace, watching your mother and brother lean on you because you were the stable one. I should have stood between them and your wallet a long time ago. You did the right thing. Change your keys, block their numbers, and don't you dare feel a single ounce of guilt. You paid their debts with your youth, you don't owe them another dime." For the first time in 31 years, Elena felt the profound weight of paternal validation. She wasn't the villain, she was simply the survivor who had finally learned to say no. On Monday morning, Elena took the final, irreversible steps to fortify her life against any future emotional or legal incursions. She arrived at the office of a premier family law firm in downtown Austin at 9 a.m. Sitting across from a sharp, no-nonsense attorney, she laid out the police report, the recorded audio, and a log of the harassment she had faced over the weekend. By noon, a formal cease and desist letter was drafted and dispatched via certified mail to Marcus, Sophia, and Margaret. The document explicitly stated that any further contact, whether via phone, social media, or physical approach, would result in an immediate application for a domestic violence restraining order. Elena also took the extra precaution of updating her human resources file at her tech firm, removing her family members from her emergency contact list and providing their photos to corporate security to ensure they could never compromise her workplace. With the legal walls firmly established, Elena began the far more difficult task of repairing her internal architecture. That afternoon, she attended her first session with Dr. Eris Thorne, a licensed psychologist specializing in familial trauma and enmeshment. Sitting in the quiet, sunlit office overlooking Lady Bird Lake, Elena felt a strange, unfamiliar vulnerability. For nearly a decade, her identity had been forged on being the resilient one, the fixer, the reliable daughter who swallowed her anger to keep the collective family unit afloat. Dr. Thorne listened patiently as Elena described the $87,000 in extorted funds and the elaborate smart lock defense she had orchestrated. "Elena," Dr. Thorne said softly, adjusting her glasses. "What you built on your door wasn't just a physical lock. It was the first real boundary your soul has ever known. You've spent years functioning as a safety net for people who were jumping out of perfectly fine windows just to see if you'd catch them. Cutting them off isn't cruel. It's an act of profound self-preservation." Those words stayed with Elena as she drove back to East Austin that evening. As she parked her car in the Vista's secure garage, her phone remained completely silent. There were no frantic texts from Marcus, no guilt-inducing voicemails from her mother. The silence wasn't empty, it was a vast, peaceful landscape where her new life was finally beginning to take root. Exactly 12 months had passed since the morning the alarm echoed through the grand pavilion of the Vista. It was now July 2027. Elena sat at a corner table of a high-end restaurant in downtown Austin, casually scrolling through the digital pages of the local business registry on her tablet. A notification from her financial tracking app confirmed a steady, healthy appreciation of her personal portfolio. Without the parasitic drain of her family's endless emergencies, her bank account had rebounded with staggering velocity. But across town, the laws of financial gravity had finally caught up with the people who had spent decades treating Elena's life savings as their personal venture capital. Marcus Voss's house of cards had completely collapsed. Deprived of Elena's $87,000 cushion, he had attempted to double down on high-leverage crypto futures using high-interest personal loans to cover his mounting co-BAC, gambling, debts. The market corrected ruthlessly, and by early spring, Marcus was forced to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The obsidian black Cadillac Escalade that had pulled so aggressively into the valet loop a year ago was repossessed by the bank on a rainy Tuesday morning. Their suburban home was sold at a foreclosure auction. Sophia, stripped of her influencer lifestyle and the luxury designer bags she used to flaunt, was forced to take on two jobs, one as a mid-level receptionist and another doing night shifts for an online customer service portal, to pay for the rent of a cramped, two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. Margaret Voss, meanwhile, had been completely dethroned. The extended family, fully aware of her complicity and manipulation after viewing Elena's master dossier, had systematically excluded her from major family gatherings, holiday dinners, and financial discussions. Her word no longer carried weight, and her dramatic health crises were now met with polite, clinical indifference rather than panicked compliance. She lived alone in her small condominium, her phone no longer buzzing with the power of controlling her daughter's life. The toxic matriarchy she had spent an entire lifetime building had been dismantled by a single, unyielding line of code. They had spent their lives believing they were too big to fail, but without their unwilling donor, they were nothing more than a cautionary tale of generational entitlement. While the old Voss empire turned to ash, Elena's trajectory resembled a flawless launch sequence. In October 2026, the board of directors at her cybersecurity firm recognized what her family had always tried to suppress: her absolute, unshakable capability under pressure. She was officially promoted to Director of Security, becoming one of the youngest executives in the company's history. The promotion came with a significant equity package and a salary that placed her firmly in the top tier of Austin's tech elite. The presentation she had protected so fiercely on that chaotic July morning had become the blueprint for the firm's global enterprise security infrastructure. Her professional world was now a reflection of her internal state, organized, resilient, and highly respected. With her new financial freedom, Elena decided to leave the 28th floor of the Vista. She wanted a sanctuary that was entirely her own creation from the ground up. In early 2027, she closed on a stunning, custom-built architectural home nestled in the limestone hills of Westlake Hills, overlooking the green canopy of the Austin Hill Country. The property was a masterpiece of modern design, wrapped in native Texas stone and expansive glass. Naturally, Elena personally designed the security architecture. The house featured an isolated, redundant smart network with a military-grade biometric access protocol. There were no physical key fobs to steal, no spare mechanical keys to hand out. The system recognized only her, the unique geometry of her iris and the specific frequency of her voice. Her life had transformed from a series of anxious extractions into a masterpiece of deliberate choice. She spent her weekends hiking the Greenbelt trails, collecting contemporary Texas art, and hosting small, intimate dinners for a carefully curated circle of true friends and professional peers who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. Her father, Richard, visited her often, sitting on her expansive deck and drinking sweet tea as they talked about everything and nothing at all. He looked at his daughter and saw a woman who had successfully navigated a minefield and emerged completely whole. The chronic tension that used to bunch up Elena's shoulders had completely vanished, replaced by a fluid, graceful confidence. She had built a fortress, not to hide from the world, but to finally allow her authentic. In late June 2027, just a few weeks before the one-year anniversary of her liberation, a solitary email slipped through Elena's heavily filtered personal inbox. It was from Marcus, sent from a newly created, generic Gmail account. The message was a masterclass in pathetic, half-hearted contrition. He spoke of his bankruptcy, the exhausting grind of his new life, and how mistakes were made on both sides. He closed the message with a thinly veiled plea, "Mom's health is really declining, Elena. She talks about you every day. We're family, after all. Let's leave the past in the past. I'm not asking for money, just a chance for us to sit down, talk, and let the kids see their aunt again." A few hours later, a courier arrived at the security gate of her Westlake Hills estate delivering a handwritten letter from Margaret, filled with religious platitudes and tear-stained pages about forgiveness, yet notably missing any actual acknowledgement of the $87,000 she had helped steal. Elena read the email and glanced at the envelope resting on her marble kitchen island. A year ago, these words would have triggered an emotional civil war within her chest. Today, she felt absolutely nothing, no anger, no vindication, and most importantly, no guilt. She recognized the tactics instantly. It was the same old malware wrapped in a new, softer user interface. They didn't miss her, they missed her utility. They missed the unlimited credit line and the unconditional safety net. Elena clicked the administrative terminal on her laptop, permanently routing Marcus's new email address into the black hole of her server's spam filter. She walked over to the trash bin and dropped Margaret's unopened letter inside, letting the lid swing shut with a clean, decisive snap. Later that evening, as a spectacular Texas sunset painted the hill country sky in brilliant shades of amber, gold, and deep violet, Elena opened her leather-bound personal journal. She sat by the edge of her infinity pool, watching the water mirror the burning horizon. She picked up her pen and began to write the final entry of a chapter that had taken her 31 years to close. True peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of absolute clarity. For years, I believed that loving my family meant allowing them to destroy me, that blood bound me to an endless debt I never signed for. I was wrong. Tearing down that toxic infrastructure was the hardest configuration I've ever deployed, but it was the only choice that mattered. My home is safe. My mind is quiet. My future is entirely my own design. I didn't just change a lock. I changed the entire bloodline. She closed the journal, the heavy leather cover sealing her words into history. Elena stood up, took a deep breath of the cool evening air, and looked out over the vast, open horizon of Austin. The lights of the city were beginning to twinkle in the distance, but her eyes were fixed on the stars above. The firewall was absolute. The system was stable. Elena Voss was finally, unforgettably free.